Yeah, well, this is Bob McIntosh from Mass Hire Lowell Career Center, and I'm here, Mark Anthony Dyson, and we're going to talk about hanging tough in the job search. Now, I met Mark on LinkedIn around exactly 9/20/12. Okay, so rather November 26, 2012. So that was a long time ago. But we have been close connections. We have shared each other's material. In fact, he's had me on his podcast, and it's called Voice of Job Seekers. And he had me on around April 2018 and September 2018. And then in November, I interviewed him on his own podcast. And that was really fun. That was a
Yeah.
great time. His podcast was launched in 2014. It's been 10 years.
2013. It's been
2013.
11,
Okay.
almost 11 years. Yeah.
11 years. Absolutely. That's a great love of yours, isn't it?
It's the content. Sometimes the process is more than what people can realize, but it's become a whole lot easier. I was doing it in a day where we
Yeah.
didn't have the live streams and how easy it is to do a podcast these days. But
Right. Right.
yeah, it is a lot easier than now. Anybody can do it.
Mhm.
Now, as opposed to back then, you had to work through your flaws to
Right.
get to the final product.
Yeah. Absolutely. So probably a little more difficult than writing a post. I know that you've contributed to Forbes, Business Insider, Fast Company, LinkedIn News. Any others that I'm missing?
Not as a I've contributed, but not as a writer to
Okay.
the platforms. People probably would know me more from like my own blog. Pay Scale is one, the
Oh yeah.
financial
Yeah.
diet, job-hunt.org. There's one out there, Business Insider. BET allowed me, Black Entertainment Television.
Really
They even
nice.
had me contribute a couple articles some time back. I've written on close to 20 different platforms.
Wow. Can you possibly remember every media you were hosted or you were on? Can you possibly remember all that?
Now, I don't
Yeah.
remember all of it. If somebody juggles my thought process, I was actually in a podcast that was really a national radio show. And the host asked me about an article I wrote 10 years ago. I was
Mhm.
fortunate at that time on the biggest platform to remember what that article was about. But that was, I'm going, wow, you bring up something 10 years. She didn't even
Yeah.
prepare me for it. But you know what? I remembered and it turned out.
Yeah. I mean, I had to do some research and I have my notes here, but so folks, the way that this is going to work is you're going to see Mark and I on the screen after I unhide the, you can see his LinkedIn. Oh, maybe not. Okay. Let me just do this. Let me show you his. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There is his LinkedIn profile. And right now he's working on a project, the job scam report. And if you would, then just take a picture of his QR code and subscribe to it. But in any case, follow him on LinkedIn, and it's Mark Anthony Dyson, one word. And he'd appreciate that very much. Okay. So, is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself, Mark?
I'm here in Chicago. It's a little warm. And
Hmm.
we decided not to put the AC on because it's not too hot. And we want
Okay.
there's the electric bills.
Right. Exactly.
So I've got nice cold water. So I'm ready to
Okay.
go
And
for
take a sip
anything.
whenever you want. I was going to say that my mother-in-law lives below us in a unit, and
Uh,
she refuses to use AC.
yeah.
So whenever I go into her apartment, it's just sweltering. I don't
Yeah.
get it. I
Yeah.
love AC.
There are times to use it, but we had some 90-degree weather here. And of course, that would take priority more so than 83, 84.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I will say that we also have the protection of some trees that
Mhm.
as a below. So I do spend some time raking up the branches here,
Good.
especially when
Good.
we get that little wind that blows through Chicago like it does.
All right. Okay, let's go. And by the way, folks, if you have any questions whatsoever, then feel free to write them in the question box. Please make them short because I have a hard time reading long questions. Uh, and we'll try to get to them, but we have a number of topics to cover. The job search is a very broad topic. So we're going to try to cover four, maybe five areas of that. And I'm really looking forward to this. Already, I think I got a question or a statement. Okay. All right. Okay. So if you can see and hear me and Mark, then you're accounted for. All right.
Good deal.
Okay. I got to say that top of mind is the tough job market. And the job market in itself is a very difficult topic to handle in one day or maybe one week. What I did want to say about that is realizing that it's a tough job market should provide some solace to people. And I do have a poll and I want to launch that. Okay. And please vote. And Mark and I will comment on it. Okay. We're getting some good participation here.
Good deal.
Yeah. So the question is, how are you hanging in there? Oh,
Me me personally, or is this just
no, this for the audience. And
okay for the audience? Okay.
yeah, yeah. I just want them to know that we're thinking about them. And
Sure, sure. No, this is
yeah.
great. Not very often. Had a couple where polls are being done during the show. This is awesome.
Okay, I'm going to close it in about 5 seconds. Anyone who's attended my webinars know that I really like my polls, and
Mhm.
you know I hold them quite often. Okay, the large majority, 64%, say they could be doing better. What are your comments on that?
I think a lot of people could be doing better. Today's job search, I think it's confusing. There's a lot of information that is confusing out there. There's a lot of confusing advice that is out there, even amongst those who are well known for coaching lots
Sure.
of clients at a time. They see one thing, and I think it depends. So I think the job market is splintered. This is something I think we have to understand. We don't talk about it, but the federal jobs do exist. It is something that's not broadly taken into consideration. There's also the consideration that there's also a lot of people who are off the grid, who have not
Right.
reapplied or had their unemployment run out.
Mhm.
And then there are those who are also trying to build that, what's the word I'm looking for? They're trying to build that side hustle.
Yeah.
And they also got a job that's part time or a job that they don't care about that they're working. So I think all things considered, in addition to the other splintered markets, people are not doing well because one, they're getting sidetracked, I think. A lot of
Mhm.
people still don't understand how to apply for a job and not understand it's not on automation. You don't
Right.
automatically get a chance because you apply. You also have to do things before, like research and preparation in its entirety, and do things after, follow up, send thank you notes,
Right. Right.
and also continue the job search. I think people get the idea. I applied to 100 jobs, so I should be fine. If you get, you're lucky to get one interview out of
Yeah.
those 100, if that's you. And you shouldn't be surprised at this point because past 15 years, that's been the case for sure, where people apply to hundreds of jobs. They can apply to several hundred jobs and not get anything. But I think the people understand that there's some marketing that's involved
Mhm.
during, before, during, and after they apply to jobs are the ones that actually get a better stream of opportunities than usually those who do the,
Sure.
think that it's on automation.
So to recap, the unemployment rate figure is misleading, right?
Oh, they're absolutely misleading
Yeah.
because there's a lot of people who there's a lot of considerations not made. These is like Nielsen ratings in a lot of ways. Nielsen ratings, they used
Sure.
to have the gadgets on a lot of TVs, but not every
Yeah.
TV. And they just give the numbers broad scoped on those TVs that they have some kind of attachment to.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's an understanding that job search is better done when it's more social, when there's networking interaction. I don't want to use networking and social together, but that's what it is.
Mhm.
The more social you are, the better opportunities, or you're prepared to accept better opportunities than if you're alone just applying, or should I say, mass applying.
Yeah, we've heard of that, right? Where there are tools now where you can mass apply and it will send out 100 resumes to various companies.
Yeah.
Not knowing where you're being sent, I think that's foolhardy. I really
And understanding too that a lot of people don't have one or two lanes that they are driving down. They're
Mhm.
trying to dominate all the highways to see which ones that
Right.
will be picked up. Where the people who are very focused and very strategic, they only have to apply to maybe 20 jobs in a month time, and they'll get 3 or 4 interviews because they were very intentional and they're very targeted in their approach.
So then what is the best strategy? Is it to travel many lanes, or is it to be more strategic and directed?
Most people don't have a single lane or two that they willing to travel down because they
Mhm.
think they into the opportunities. When indeed, when you mass apply, you are going to miss a whole lot. You just
Right.
imagine, yeah, if you try to throw down a bunch of balloons on one particular head, you might have one that may hit that head,
Sure.
but that's not, but the other ones are going to miss. And people, and I don't know what's going to take. A lot
Mhm.
of us, like you and I, have been saying this for many years now, not just days and months, many years, more than a decade, that the job search is when you're more targeted, more intentional. You've done the research, you prepared, you understand the industry,
Sure.
you understand that there's specific industry. However, I will say this though, if people would also do more of looking at how their skills fit into different industries will
Mhm.
give them more options.
Sure.
And sure, so as a writer, although you can argue writing is in every industry, I may not want every industry that may offers a job. So I have to see which skills are going to be specific to where I may want to make a living,
Mhm.
or maybe I'd rather be a contributor late in my life. I'm in my 60s. I can say that I'm not applying to a job. So,
Same here. Same here.
and I'm in my 60s. So I have a few more options. Maybe I might want to work for a nonprofit. So therefore, I want to look at different nonprofits where there might be more writers, and I can see are there any causes or any values that might be shared.
Mhm.
Therefore, I narrowed that pool down to a much more single lane than to say, I'm just looking for a job. I just need to pay some bills because there's many other considerations as well.
I want to get back to, you mentioned side hustles.
Yeah.
Good idea or not?
I think everybody should have a side hustle if you have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
Um, if you have the bandwidth and the side hustle, you're working a full-time job or even a part-time job, and you're spending the rest of that time as side hustle. You make some personal sacrifices on how much engagement you have. For me, in particular, my two sons live in Baltimore. I live in Chicago, so I don't have any small kids anymore. But I do like that time with my wife and quality time.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
but there's a lot of times when I could be watching TV, I'm writing. Be going to the movies, I'm
So you
writing.
have to
I
manage your
don't
time.
I don't miss out. I gym
Yeah.
time the same time 3 times a week. Don't miss that. That's a priority. But other than that, all that to say is the side hustle can be done with a full-time job. It still works full time. The rest of the time you might be sleeping, but at
Sure.
least, but you are also entertaining some other possibilities that business might be able to support you full time,
Mhm.
or it might be just a side hustle to bring in additional income.
But
Or
what about those who are looking for work, actively looking for work? Do you think a side hustle is feasible?
I think a side hustle is feasible, especially if it's increasing your skill set. If
Hmm.
it's increasing your skill set or you're honing skill through a side hustle, then it makes you a better employee because it broadens your marketability. You get an
Right.
opportunity to bring those skills. It's up to you to market yourself and to position yourself in such a way that people will see your skills being a part. But I think, if it was in a side gig, a volunteer gig can do the very same thing.
Okay. Okay. Yep. And
Let's say
so
you
are you recommending volunteering during the job search?
I think volunteering works during the summer. Now, that doesn't mean that you spend more time.
No.
Volunteering could be 5 to 10 hours a week
Sure.
or even 10 hours a month. The
Right.
main thing is if you're more strategic about it, there's a lot of organizations that would be glad to take free help if they need it. Long as it gives you an opportunity to scale your work, maybe
Mhm.
you could trade money and say, hey, if I do this thing, I complete it well, would you write a LinkedIn review for me or write a recommendation, be a reference?
Right.
And yet you could be somebody could be a reference based on 10 hours worth of work because it's the outcome.
It might be an opportunity to network, which is
And
a
it can be a very excellent opportunity. Let's say you volunteer at an event. How many people can you meet in that time where you can get that kind of exposure? You open your possibilities.
so I want to get to some of the questions. One
Sure.
person asked, okay, and we realize that it's companies are not as accessible as they used to be, right?
Right.
Dina writes, whoops, I'm getting too many questions here. Okay. How do you follow up with government jobs when they say do not reply and you will, and so forth? Yeah. So is it a possibility or should we just realize that, you know what, if it's not possible, then that's the way it is?
Ah, I'm assuming this person's talking about federal job.
Yeah.
Well, let's say
US job.
a
Yeah.
job you're applying to through your city, through your state, or USA jobs.
USA jobs. Yep.
So those are lengthy applications. USA jobs is a little bit tougher than, let's say, a city or a state job because
Right.
you might personally connect with somebody in the state. And really, in Chicago, is not very hard to do because they have a large section of city and state jobs. So
Mhm.
you might have a second or third connection or a second connection, let's say through LinkedIn, that might be working, let's say, in that area or even connected. Then you just follow that trail. You go to the one connection, say, hey, who else can I talk to? Have a great conversation, buy them coffee, have a
Mhm.
virtual, however you want to cross paths with them. And then they'll introduce you to other people. So it's not going to be as straightforward because you're absolutely right. There's
Right.
state entities, especially in the past 4 or 5 years, where they don't want to call after for any reason unless you have a business reason for it. That's a good question. However, there are other possibilities. You can look through your other networks. Facebook used to even have an app, particularly once upon a time, where
Yeah.
you can see how your connections are employed. They don't have that anymore. That's why
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the best place to get that information. And
Absolutely.
and also, a lot of people don't allow their phone contacts to be integrated to see who's on LinkedIn. I recommend that feature as well. And I know that's so old school and antiquated to a certain degree, but at least you get
But at
to
least their
see
email
who's
address.
yeah. And let's say it's not updated, but their LinkedIn profile is.
Mhm.
So of course that gives you an opportunity. You're considered a second connection. So therefore you have some room to make contact at least and to try at
Right.
least have a conversation.
That's an interesting point of making your telephone number visible on LinkedIn. I would like the audience to raise their hand if they have their telephone number on their LinkedIn profile, either in contact information or maybe their about section. Anyone? To me, these are the people that really want to be contacted.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got one. Oops. I'm going to call them out. Alyssa, Anthony, good. Two Anthony's. Craig, Cynthia, good. Aaron, Janet, John, Julio, Laura, Leah. Okay, so a good number of people do have their telephone number available or visible on LinkedIn. And so you would suggest that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
suggest that. Although you may not necessarily have to use a phone number to contact someone, the LinkedIn email
Sure.
works pretty well. I know a lot of people don't like it, but it is a very useful product. I have no problem conducting business and making transactions over.
Mhm.
That's how you and I did this particular time. I had your phone number. We've text back and forth before,
Sure.
but LinkedIn was perfect for it and it was fine. I think that's what people need to get out of their heads. Although I can understand them wanting to protect it against spam. And by now, you should
Right.
have some spam blockers on your phone.
Or you can use Google phone, right?
And I recommend using that versus your real phone number on resumes and applications
Mhm.
personally. Even though I don't coach these days, but I highly recommend it because of the amount of spam and fake jobs coming through and all these other unwanted communications that you want. Google number shields against somebody knowing your real number.
Right.
And it's real easy to use and it will actually be functional if you take a little time to configure.
Now, one person writes, social skills seem to be a big focus here. I'm autistic. I've got some tactics to pass on as normal, but it is still very difficult for me to socialize. Trying to explain this to employers is difficult. So that's more of a statement. You have a comment on that?
That one's a hard one.
Yeah.
And there's so many different phases of autism. I've had autistic clients years ago, but everybody's so different
Yeah.
in their
Tough ones.
in the way that they communicate. There are
Yeah.
some who are autistic that don't want the person to person interaction. I can understand that, but there might be other ways and try to
Sure.
make the most of the ways that's best for you.
As I said earlier, we could talk about this subject for days.
Sure.
But so let's get on to the next one. What are your
Okay.
thoughts of the proliferation of AI in the job search? ChatGPT, Gemini,
Yeah.
Copilot, all of those.
AI isn't going to make your life any easy. Let's
You
just say that. It's
you
not
think
going to
not?
make your job search any easier.
Yeah.
I think it can make your knowledge base deeper and it
Okay.
can give you more ammunition if you're more curious and you're using it on a regular basis. Like I use AI quite a bit in my writing, but I
Sure.
don't depend on it for writing. Because very often it's very general. It's pulling from many different spaces. And
Yeah.
in large part, it doesn't talk the way that we talk. It's not a conversation when you do with AI.
No, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. And so that you're not going to get, you have to either know how to manipulate it in such a way after you get what you want, or your prompts would need to improve, which that's something that everybody can do is improve their prompts
Right.
and they can improve their answers. But there's sometimes work that goes in between there as well. That doesn't mean you automatically give that information. That just means you're able to discern, get pieces that you can use, and then go down the deeper hole. A lot of people don't want to do that part. They just rather just get the answer and put it there. I was
Yeah.
listening to a seminar the other day and it was like, you can use AI, it can automatically make your blog post. Yeah, if you don't want a personality attached to it, sure, you can do that. But
Or inaccurate information, having
exactly,
chat write their resume.
exactly. And the one thing I say, and I think you've heard me say this, Bob, throughout the years, companies cannot train people to have personalities.
No, no.
They have to hire them. If you just want to use AI to think you're going to get in the door and finagle and talk your way into a position, that's not happening. They
Right.
need to see what they're missing as much as you possibly can give them. So there is some sacrifice, and there's going to also be sometimes you'll need to use some discernment in
Mm.
what you're able to uh, make available online or in an application or resume. You got to decide that and decide where that sweet spot's going to be. So that's what I think about AI. Is something everybody should be using because you could find a sweet spot to find a certain type of expertise using AI. But like saying that people get hired because they can use Google, everybody can do that now. So
But you're saying that something like ChatGPT is probably best used for research rather than writing documents.
I
Is
think
that so?
you can get research, you get better
Mhm.
insight. I think you get a nuanced approach if you use the right prompt because it's based on the user. It's not because of the tool automatically gives you all this intel. You've
Right.
got to ask it the right questions and perhaps you might get the right answer, but you got to be willing to accept getting the good bad answers and drawing intel from that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is an art in prompting. And my friend Marlon says these are three top resources I found for artistic job seekers. Okay. So he's responding to the person who
Gotcha.
commented earlier. Thank you, Marlon. That's very good. Always a very sensitive and giving person. Someone writes, I use AI to rephrase a resume summary I came up with and when customizing. So is that a bad practice? I don't think so. I think that using chat, for instance, to write a summary, you're gonna get a lot of fluff. Wouldn't you agree?
No, because it doesn't know you. They just know you as a user. I think people should go through the exercise to start with something very elementary. And
Hmm.
this is how I decided to use Mark Anthony Dyson. Like you tell people, and you've told people, and I'm sure you've had guests to say, Google yourself.
Hmm.
Use AI to Google yourself and see what you get.
Nothing.
And that would tell you that I've had every time I've done it so far, if I just put in Mark Anthony Dyson and doesn't tell me who Mark Anthony Dyson is, then it doesn't give me a whole lot. Give me Mark Anthony Dyson, the voice of job seekers. That's when I get a whole bunch of stuff
From chat? Really?
from using Chat
Yes.
GPT. I did it with Bard. I did it with when Open AI, not Open
Okay.
AI, right? The Google version of it.
So I need the point to go to the internet in order to do that, right?
Yeah, you can use
Where
those
your
tools.
podcast is all over.
There's plenty of information there, but that should inform you of what it can do and or what it can't do. Is if you know it doesn't know you by name, then it's not going to know who you are when you just put in a question. If you put in a more specific question, then it can give you a little bit more direction. It's not uncommon to have 3, 4, 5, 6 prompts to get down to the information that might be useful. You might not get anything, but it's all on the user.
Okay, so yeah, I agree. I totally agree that ChatGPT and others are best used for research, not
Mhm.
writing documents. And I use it. I must use it on a constant basis. I use it on my phone. If I want to know how to cook a hot dog in an air fryer, then I ask Chat, and it'll give me the answer.
Yeah.
So I have another poll, and we're about halfway through. So this
Okay.
poll is, and I appreciate everyone for voting. And so it is: how many interviews are you encountering? I want to talk about interviews later. Okay, I'm getting some good results here. I'll give you about 10 more seconds, folks. And this poll is coming from one of my clients who says, "What's up with employers? Why are they acting the way they're acting? Why are they treating us poorly?" In other words, let me share with you. And okay, wow, 8% are experiencing more than 10 interviews
I
per
see.
round. That's terrible,
Yeah. That's
right?
awful.
Yeah, that's 8% too much. What do you think is a reasonable number of interviews per round?
I think a few years ago, I think 3 would have been the number.
Yeah.
It would have been a good number. 2 is optimal, but I think the days of a shorter interview process might be going away. And there's
Mm.
a variety of reasons why. People really want to know what they're hiring.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, if we go through the federal government process, when you fill out a federal government like the usajobs.gov, you're they want to know what your lifetime of jobs are,
Yeah.
as opposed to in the civilian world, most of them will just want your last 10 years, 15 years at most, depending upon the position. If you're an executive, of course, you will likely have a longer resume. But all in all, to say that employers are the reason why scams are becoming big. And I know we talk about that a little bit, but it's possible that employers could hire fake employees if they're not careful.
Mhm.
So they definitely want to try to stay away from, they want to make sure that they're getting the real deal when they hire someone. They want to be able to authenticate it and make sure
So
that
wait, hold on. So on the flip side of fake jobs, you
yeah.
think there might be fake employees, fake
Oh,
candidates?
yeah, it's already happened.
Oh yeah.
They were fake employees, and the video interviews. There had been people who have used deep fake to on both sides to either be a fake employer or a fake employee. So I think that employers are going to be a little bit more careful,
Okay.
and they're investing the money and they want more returns for the money. So at least at this particular point in the journey, that there isn't the hiring to train people isn't going to be there like it used to, like they used to be able to get hired and then
Mm,
you would have a 2 month, 3 months to a year training. That's going to go away. A lot of the employers going to want more on that first day of onboarding, or
okay.
after onboarding. So I think that's going to go away. And I think people should expect to go 4 or 5 interviews now, or more.
Okay. So one person asked, is there any value in assessment exams?
If it's a good assessment, it's going to get great information. A bad assessment is going to give you terrible information.
Okay. That makes
So
sense.
it
So it
depends.
depends on
It
the
depends on
stuff.
the assessment. I
Yeah.
think assessments in general, just to do them, if you're not coming away with something useful, it's not going to serve you. You're wasting both of your times, and probably more the employer because you spent all that money trying to
Right.
come up with this with the assessment.
So other than to realize that a large number of interviews per round is possible, and you might be outraged by it, but everyone's experiencing it. So what?
Yes,
So then, other than being outraged, is there anything we can do in these long interview rounds?
understand when we talk about interview rounds, if we would try to break it down, your first interview might be with somebody over the phone, an HR person who's just trying to get an idea of who you are and
Right.
what exactly you're applying to. And basically to see if you can really get along with a human being, so to speak, and to see if that person is going to pass whatever the criteria is to go to the next phase,
Sure.
which would probably be like a interview video chat. Usually, a lot of times, it's a one-way video interview these days. It could be a two-person interview in that respect, with the employer using a, and then the third one is that you might have a behavioral assessment. Uh, You're taking a test, some kind of virtual test to
Right.
do it. And those could be interchangeable. I'm just giving you an idea. So the fourth interview is actually with the person. If you cut out one step, the third interview is with the actual person. And then person feels like you're hired. You're not actually often seeing the final decision maker, that first person to person. Likely you may pass through two or three or maybe a panel.
Okay.
So we're talking about right there
So
five.
so what? So then, what does it take? Durability,
I
endurance.
think the one is, I think people don't take advantage of the tools that we have available, like your network is a tool. If you know
Okay.
somebody that's worked at a company or know somebody that's knows someone that knows someone, there's nothing wrong going down that hole. You're not bad if you go down that hole because it's going to be worth it. You can get an idea how they interview. And then, of course, the research of the company. Some companies have on their page what their process is. Let's say NVIDIA. NVIDIA has a whole section devoted to what the interview process is. And so you can expect, okay, I'm going to talk to these people. I'm expect that this type of documentation, be asked these types of questions. That's
Okay.
perfect. My company don't have it, but it's nice if job seekers could check to make sure that they don't have that posted first, so they won't be surprised. So that kind of takes care of half the battle. But yeah, you should probably prepare for different types of interviews anyway, right? You should
Okay.
prepare for a behavioral interview. You should prepare for, just sometimes there's a personality assessment where employers may do. So prepare for that. Prepare for the type of questions, what's going on in the industry. Those go down the hole at the beginning before you leave your next job, before you leave this job. Start doing those things because interviewing is a skill. It
Mhm.
isn't somebody who's naturally gifted at doing those things. They prepared because they've done them. Do interviews, even though you have a great job. That's some of the best advice that I had when I was coming up. Interview at least once a year. If you've been a job, If you've been at a job 5 years, you should have had at least 4 interviews, at
Hmm.
least once a
Yeah.
year, so that you know what the market is dictating. And these days, it also helps you know what style of interviews that people are asking in your industry.
Do you realize that on November of 2018, when I interviewed you, it was about interviews. And what you just said is totally different than what I heard on the recording.
And I think
You
it
know?
does change. We
Right.
understand. Remember during the pandemic, and you and I
Yes.
during the pandemic, we've had
Right. Now, well,
conversations
it was before the pandemic. Yeah, but go ahead.
as the market changed, so does strategy.
Mm.
And when you consider what the market is asking, interviews are longer. They're asking you to do projects.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something that didn't
Oh,
happen
trust me,
in
my folks
2018,
know
right?
this. Yep.
2018 on a larger scale, that people weren't asked to do projects to do for homework, no less. Now they may have taken an assessment or asked, can you produce
Yeah.
something here in this block of time? But people are now being asked to take stuff home. Over the past few years, things change. So yeah, I think that people are going to need to change along with the market. Therefore, our advice, I remember there are times when, and the people you and I know on a regular basis change their advice from one end to the other
Mhm.
within 6 months of time because the market changed. Remember, because when job hopping changed a lot of things for employers, we had to adjust our advice, not because we're saying no, they won't accept it, is what the employers are saying and accepting now. What are those trends? So you go to those trends and you base that advice upon the trend.
Yeah. So I need to let this person vent.
Okay.
We don't need to respond to it. He's just venting. How do we get a job without doing all these dance monkey tricks? This is BS. He didn't write BS, but
Without knowing a lot of the industry, if you're generally mass applying to jobs, I'm afraid you're in the circus. Understand what I'm saying here is that a job, there are certain industries that don't have as close a scrutiny as others. It's a matter of who gets the early bird gets the worm in some
right.
ways. There are other industries where this mass amount of scrutiny, this mass amount of training and upskilling, continual, and and there's some industries that are smaller than others, so they know each other
Right.
and they're part of groups and different organizations and associations. So when somebody says, I'm getting ready to move, that they don't have to go to a job board because they just heard it there in an industry meeting or a
Yeah.
committee. So there's a lot of nuances. It's not a straightforward answer, but yeah, the more that employers become concerned, the more filters they're going to build, or they may decide to remove the filters. Right before the pandemic, there were some employers in retail that kind of removed the whole application process, and they tried to hire pretty much who was coming on the street. That was very interesting, but that was very short lived. But all that to say is that it depends on the industry, depends on what's at stake.
So what can we do with someone like you and I? We have pretty good voice on LinkedIn. What should we call out the employers? Would that do any good?
I think a broad calling out of employers will just fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
I think there are certain industries, people who work in those industries are the better people to call out. I think there are things that are happening in tech and in HR and in staffing. Lord knows if you're in staffing HR, and that the turbulence there, that's a whole nother spell, but that's a totally different industry as well because there's certifications involved. Experience really does matter. What you've done for me lately also matters as well. So, but I know I'm talking to staffing execs and they had a hard time transitioning to other jobs.
Yeah.
However, if you're in the sustainability industry, it's a wide open field for a large part because that's still a very much growing industry. Even after the past 10 years, where when I think it was IIT that had a whole program, as well as some other colleges dedicated to sustainability. You had accounting, but there was accounting in the green industry.
Yeah.
You had tech, but you had tech in the green industry, which is completely somewhat different than tech in the mainstream industry. So I think the more specific that you get and understand those nuances and know what those employers want, the better. If you're still going to be generalist just to try to find a job, which I certainly understand, I've been there once upon a time,
Yeah.
moons ago, where you had to get something to survive.
Hmm.
You had to get anything you can. You've got to eat whatever crow you got to eat to get it. I get that.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, you could be more specific, more intentional, more strategic in applying. If
So
that
I
answers,
guess
I hope
understanding
I
that,
answered your question that time.
understanding that this is a pandemic, as you mentioned earlier about fake jobs, long interview, just understanding it. And so your outrage is warranted. And then besides interviewing better, understanding how to interview with behavioral based questions, traditional situation questions, interviewing better is the best we can do.
Yeah, I think in general,
Oh, and
in
then networking, trying to
yeah,
contact in the
I
company.
think people can present themselves better
Hmm.
because a lot of people don't practice and research. They don't practice interviewing. Interviewing is a skill. If
Yeah.
you haven't been interviewed in 4 or 5 years, you are now light years behind because it's changed so much. What's
Right.
expected changed so much. In other words, you don't get a chance to charm someone in a one-way video interview. You either got it or you don't have it.
Mm.
Understand that there's a lot of ways to answer that question. It's hard to general. So it does help to strength finding classmates, maybe talk to a coach. There are coaches that are doing pro bono work all the time. So if you can afford it, you can research the ones who are doing it. I don't know the ones right now. All the ones I know closely, and the ones I know that you know closely, they've been at it a long time. They're getting paid. They want to get paid for their work, and that's understandable. But those possibilities are out.
I think one of the best tools available for interview practice are mock interviews. And we offer them all the time, but no one takes us up on them.
And that's a shame because you offered them for free.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
offer them for free.
I mean, I
And
volunteer for an organization that offers
mm,
free mock interviews for veterans and their spouses, Candorful.
yeah,
And I haven't had anyone ask for a mock interview in, say, a couple of months. I just think they're a great tool.
yeah. So they're excellent too. And I
Yeah.
don't think you can mock interview with just anybody. You should be able to mock interview. It's better to mock interview with somebody who can give you valuable feedback, who has your
Yeah.
coaching
Yeah. Yeah.
experience.
And ideally someone in the industry, but you can't always find those. They're
But I think people, if they looked a little bit harder, they can find them if they wanted them. But it is a time investment, not just to do the mock interviews, but to do all the work that comes along with that at that particular time. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Is doing the work before, understanding, okay, I want to go in these industries. These are possible for me. My skill set fits into it. Can you possibly answer the question, what are your skill sets, your most marketable skill sets? A
Mhm.
lot of people can't answer that question.
Absolutely. Older workers.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like you and me.
Yeah,
Hanging tough in the job search. I think I'm not going to stand here and say that ageism doesn't exist. We know it does.
right.
But how, in your opinion, how do we better market ourselves to become more attractive to employers? Any
I think,
thoughts on that?
yeah, I do have some thoughts on that. I think people limit their possibilities before they can find out what's possible. If you
Wow.
say that I will only take these type of jobs,
Right. I
then
hear that.
you have just shrunk the market to only where you can answer those jobs. Does it exist? Might be the question you have to answer, or you have to find out to explore. So
Mhm.
it goes back to the advice I gave before about finding the industries and deciding on the jobs that you can, where your skills will fit, and look at the larger ones and even the smaller ones, whether it could be, I may not want to be a vice president anymore,
Sure.
but I can be a consultant. Consulting firms, the right ones, or maybe I'm a vice president, but I like working with my hands now. So is Home Depot in Lowe's, uh,
Mhm.
uh,
Won't
possible?
make you as much money, but it's something you enjoy.
But it's something you want to enjoy because you want to be home enjoying the grandkids, or you or be able to travel and
Yeah.
have flexibility. Those things are consideration. I think there are a lot of older Americans, especially, who are in a fix. They've accepted their Social Security. The pension is not quite enough to live on. And so
Mhm.
you're going to have to start making some decisions whether if Medicare is not going to, A and B is not going to be enough, then I'll need to get a full time job. Then you've got to, okay, now we've got an idea what type of job you want. If you're more specific, you get as far as the industries that where your skills fit, you can increase your options that way. Like we said, tech is not just tech in the tech industry. Tech is in hospitality, tech
Mhm.
in the medical fields, they're in retail, in all types of fields.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to certain degrees,
'Cause if
I
you
heard,
ask ChatGPT, okay, so where is AI most prevalent? It will give you a list of industries where it's most prevalent. And then as you're saying, it will give you industries where, you know, but not to a great extent.
but it also has there's a social component to job search a lot of people don't want to take on. In other words, we get a lot of intel from LinkedIn. We do. And not that I'm a big proponent of LinkedIn. It
Mhm.
is a huge factor in at least getting the information of what the trends are and how people are getting hired, how older people are getting hired. So you find those, you look at what kind of skills they have. Maybe you'll find somebody that mirrors your situation, or maybe somebody that has a skill that you may need to get still. You can't rule out that industries are scaling in ways that they never had before. It's not just about money. It's also about market. What does the market need? If you're smart enough to figure out where there's a hole in the market, then you have a greater chance, especially at being consultant. But in order to be hired these days, you have to be much more thoughtful and targeted in the ability to get a job than being
What about also researching where they're getting hired?
that's
Like,
important.
yeah,
That's
which
probably
companies are hiring them?
and the part of the market research is, by region, by state,
Yeah.
national. I don't always recommend people to look remote as a first option, even though it's a possibility. And the reason is because a lot of remote jobs aren't stating that they're remote at first,
Mm.
especially when you look at a job posting. They're not necessarily saying, oh, this is a hybrid or remote. Some of them are,
But they can
and I
become remote.
but it can be remote, and
Maybe
sometimes
negotiate some remote work. Yeah.
you might be able to you might be able to negotiate. My youngest son negotiated some remote work when he was with a small tech company, which, by the way, small companies are awesome to work at.
Oh, yeah. And
Small,
they hire more than larger companies as a whole.
they hire they hire faster.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
They're human centered, most of them, because that's the reason why a lot of them break away because they're tired of the structure of corporate communication. So you're more likely to be more informed, and you'll
Mhm.
get a chance to do two or three different jobs, which can make you more marketable in the long run.
I hear that. I hear
Yeah.
that. So I've been neglecting some of our audience members and
Yeah. Let's go through them, see what they say.
yeah, one person writes, "Will there be Q&A?" Okay.
You've been doing it throughout, but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm an older worker, job seeker, lots of experience, but a dinosaur in the new upcoming technology. Do you think that older workers can't learn technology?
I would be an older worker and I've learned new technology. So I answer that with a resounding yes. And different than, let's say, my wife will only new technology to her is still posting on Facebook. You know,
Oh,
I
my
think it's If you're willing to do it, then you
Mhm.
can learn it. If
Yeah,
you're willing
I
to
think
do it.
that's it. If you want to learn, then you can learn.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not only possible, but yeah, there's a lot of us who are doing it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Now, my wife and I are reversed. She knows a lot more technology than I do. I don't even use TikTok, although I don't know if that qualifies as technology.
I wouldn't apply your perception of tech. I think though using video calling is an upscale of technology, so you got that down, and I think that's far more than most
Except the last
people.
time I had you on is I forgot to hit record.
Yeah, and it's not that nobody said technology is the perfect beast,
No.
but it is something that makes you appear a lot more energetic in the workplace if you are in all those discussions and you're willing to learn. And I think a lot of part it starts there. I'm willing to learn. I tried, I
Mhm.
failed, I looked up, I corrected, I took the time, and that's where people get crossed up.
Georgia writes, I've come across some younger workers who do not get technology. Yeah,
Every generation.
every generation. Sure. What about work life balance for older workers? I don't know if that's a question or if that's something that we want. I think as we get older, as with the grandchildren come along, by the way, I'm
Yeah.
expecting one.
Wow.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
congratulations. Yes. Nice.
November. Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for, I probably won't have them for a while yet. My sons, even
What
though
about
they're
Marcus?
27,
Marcus
30.
married?
Marcus is currently not married,
Okay.
didn't have any children, doesn't have any, he's 30 years old. And he is, yeah, so that's a little ways off.
Okay. Um, yeah. There's a lot of dissatisfaction with employers and taking their sweet time. We get that.
Yeah,
But
well,
I think
it's going to be that way for a while. People might as well prepare for a job search that's going to be 6+ months for the most part
right.
in most industries. If you're in HR staffing, as I say, a lot of them past year and a half, I've seen some really good professionals face that. It's different for tech. Tech is different, depends on your certifications and your training
Mhm.
and being able to market. Hospitality is still an open market. It's still climbing. A lot of these companies, Hyatt, Hilton, they bought up property to be all inclusive.
Sure.
And so they're going to need residents in their local area to work. If
And
you're
they hire various occupations too.
they
It's not,
hire different, they need,
front desk and cleaning,
they need,
marketing,
yeah.
finance. Yeah.
But I would definitely wouldn't rule out hospitality because it has been escalating to great degree. And
Right.
some of these jobs are really good paying jobs. Again, look at across the board, which industries are your skills fit the best.
I imagine it's, yeah. And I know it would be scary thinking about switching to a different industry, coming from biomed to going into manufacturing or hospitality, as you say. Maybe that's something we need to get over as older workers.
I think we need to get over, I think the flexibility is very important. I think all those personal attributes that come into play, resilience, hard work, perseverance, those
Yes.
things matter. And those things are real big. That's something employers want. But can you package it in a way that makes it desirable?
That's the trick. That's the trick.
Yeah.
Because as one person wrote in the audience, one person writes, maybe I'm not advertising free mock interviews. Maybe job seekers need to do a better job of packaging their greatness.
And I think it's all when it comes to, I think I said it earlier, presentation is huge when it comes to interviewing and
Yeah.
how you present yourself. The stigma of older people is that we may not be able to keep up with the changing and things like that. We can. We're probably better at adapting than young people because young people think one way, we think another.
Yeah, I think so.
And we're more apt to stay until something's done, as opposed to a young person, they're going to leave in the middle of to spite up. You've got to think of ways to market yourself, and it's going to be some sacrifice. It's going to be something, some things that you don't want to do.
Yeah. Some person writes, "How do we get a job coach at Mass Hire? Fill out the online form." Okay. We're at the top of the hour, and you said you had a 3 o'clock. Gosh, I hope
Yeah.
not making
Yeah.
you late, but
I got a few more minutes if you want to take a few more minutes.
yeah, if you can
Yeah.
spare
Yeah.
it.
Let's do it.
Because this topic of older workers, and we call them mature workers, we could go on like any of the other topics we covered, but quickly talk about the benefits older workers offer, which younger workers don't.
Older workers have experienced everything when it comes to adversity.
Say
And,
that again?
and when it comes to adversity, older
Oh,
workers,
life experience. Yes.
life
Yes.
experience,
Yeah.
life experience, and in the workplace, we've seen it all.
Mhm.
Uh, we've experienced all types of attacks and things on our workplace. We've gone through
We've
all
suffered
types of
loss.
changes.
Yeah.
We've suffered loss. We've learned how to deal with those things. And those are things that I don't think you necessarily have to lead with those things when you present that to an employer, but employers should know that if they're looking for somebody that will hang through tough times when
Sure.
things get low, we are more pliable than, let's say, younger workers. Because younger workers, when you're young, I understand it. We were there, and money
Yep.
did matter, but we also understood that to weather a storm, the clear days are pretty good,
Yeah.
and they feel pretty good. So we know how to do that. We can also be productive in those particular times as well. We know different ways of producing work outside of technology. Now, if you can get those two worlds to combine, then you make yourself a very viable product for the company now, but also in the future. Let's say you have a company that doesn't use a lot of technology real well, but you have some spreadsheet experience, like with
Yeah.
Excel, then you can find ways to combine both of those and present it in a way that say, hey, this makes it a lot easier. Really, most executives, they don't turn down a good Excel sheet that's well done and configured and all that. Things
Absolutely.
like just being more creative. And that's the other thing too. We have more experience of being creative. So we know that there's much more ways to peel a banana. Now, I think there those of us that need to learn how to do the simple tasks as well and don't
Mhm.
make it frustrating for our colleagues. So ask yourself, do you know how to convert a Word document to PDF? I think, eh, and I know some of you say, what's a PDF? That's where the problem lies. So I think that's it. But the other part too, I think is really important for older workers is we are slower in understanding the speed of change and adapting to the speed of work of a team. We know how to get things done, but if somebody's going a little bit faster, yeah, we need them to slow down, but we need to catch up. And I think that's an important element that a dynamic that often misses amongst older people,
Yeah.
uh, as well as being able to relate and coming in to learn at first and not to show these whippersnappers what you can do.
I haven't heard the word
I mean,
whippersnappers in forever.
right? Nobody uses that word, but I'm just saying all that is that don't think of yourself more highly than you actually are because
Yeah.
you're a very valuable piece, but not everybody needs to know the very first day that you're there. Throughout time, you'll be able to prove that value and to be able to insert your abilities at specific times where the value is going to be appreciated the most.
So are you saying that going into a job, you have more knowledge than most of the people in there? Do you
I would
refrain from
say
sharing your knowledge? Because I think you do.
I think you do, but I think you need to know where it needs to be placed. I think
Probably
you
not your
need to,
boss.
right. I think you need to listen where you want to speak and
Yeah.
speak where there's not a lot of listening at times, because I think that a lot of times we got to repeat ourselves to get our points across.
Yeah.
It may take 5 or 6, 7 times to say something in different ways for it to get across than saying it the first time and everybody thinks it's a revelation. So I think there just needs to be some of that patience. But I think uh, just go in and listen and take in that. that experience and pick your spots strategically, but understand that you're there also to learn as much as you are to share.
So it sounds like you're not all good news about older workers. There are some weaknesses or some things we
Yes.
need to work on.
I think our weaknesses are contingent on our abilities to employ the other things that really matter to people. We have to understand that we're adding value to where we need, not to where we think we need or to what we think we need.
Okay.
So when people, if you know that there are holes that are already filled, you might be able to add value. That may not be the first place to go. There might be some low hanging fruit
Yeah.
and does take time, or you need to take the time to do the things you might think it might be trivial. Don't have somebody to do your conversion from Word to PDF for you. Learn how to do it yourself and do it on a regular basis. And
I
I'm
just
just
want to
using
I
that as
just
a
want
prompt.
to mention that Steven says we actually want to work. I think that's a huge benefit of a mature worker, that we want to work. We have a strong work
Well,
ethic.
I think people understand the dynamics of they don't want to cognitively fail when they go on the years. More active you are, the more you keep your wits, and it's just like your body. The more active you are keeping your body in shape, the
Yeah.
more you can see the benefits when you need it when you get older. I think people understand that.
All right, my friend, I'm going to let you run, but
Okay.
I so appreciate this. Hey, maybe in the future we can talk about mature workers, whether you host it or I host it or someone else host it, like Mark. What's Mark's last name? Marc Miller. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be arranged. I'll be sure to
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
I'll
Get
have
in
that
touch with them. Tell them that we'd like to do a triple and talk about older workers.
yeah, I think that's important. I've written articles in recent years on older workers. I still write about them.
Yeah, no, I saw some of your video, or rather your podcast. One of them
Yeah,
addressed it. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm very in tune with that world still.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for
Thank you
helping
so
our
much.
folks. It's always a pleasure talking with you. Okay,
Glad glad to serve and
be
help.
good and stay cool. Okay.
All right. You
All
too.
right.
Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Bye.